My friends, let's not talk about silence today. You've heard it 1,000 times already. Every video out there tells you that silence is the answer, that silence is power. And yes, you've already stepped into that phase. You've pulled back. You've gone quiet. You've stopped chasing. You don't need another lecture about silence. What you need is something deeper, something fresh. Let's talk about guilt. Because guilt is the one emotion that stalks them in the dark when the noise is gone. It's not the absence of your voice that breaks them. It's the presence of their own conscience. And that, folks, is far more powerful than silence alone. Here's the truth. Human beings can run from other people, but they can never outrun themselves. They can distract themselves with parties, with new faces, with fake replacements. But when the night grows quiet and the mask slips, they sit alone with the one person they can't escape, themselves. And it's in that moment that guilt creeps in. Like a shadow in the corner of their room, it doesn't shout, it whispers. You pushed away someone real. You betrayed someone who cared. You ruined something rare. And no matter how hard they try, they can't silence that voice. Think of guilt as an echo. You throw away someone's love, and the sound of that act doesn't vanish. It bounces back. It follows them down empty hallways. It sneaks into their dreams. It appears when they see someone who looks like you, when they hear a song you once played, when they pass by a place you once walked together. That's the haunting power of guilt. It turns the ordinary world into a mirror that reflects their mistakes. They don't just miss you, my friends, they punish themselves without even realizing it. And here's what most people don't understand. Guilt is heavier than rejection, heavier than loneliness, heavier even than jealousy. It bends the spine. It makes their chest tighten when they see your face in their memory. It turns victories hollow, because deep down they know the one person who truly saw them, the one who stood by them, they betrayed. And that realization stings every time. Now, why is this important for you? Because once you understand guilt, you'll see the truth. You don't have to do anything extreme. You don't have to beg. You don't have to plot. You don't have to scream your worth. Their own psychology does the work for you. Guilt doesn't let them rest. Guilt doesn't let them move on cleanly. Guilt turns their mind into a battlefield, and you don't even have to lift a finger. Folks, you've been told over and over to go quiet, but I want you to realize you're already there. What you need now is to let guilt do its job. And in the next part of this guide, I'll show you the 7 subtle things you do. Not silence, but actions, ways of carrying yourself, small psychological flips that make guilt unbearable for them until they break and text you first. Remember, they don't text because they suddenly became kind. They text because guilt has eaten them alive and left them no choice. So I want you to hold this truth close. Guilt is their chain, not yours. And when they finally break down and reach for their phone, it will be because your worth became undeniable in the one courtroom they can't escape, their own mind. Say it with me. Write it in the comments. Their guilt, my power. 4 words. Your shield, your weapon, your calm. Press that like button, subscribe, and stay with me. Because once you see this, you'll never be fooled again. Number 1. Withdraw your energy. Trigger their inner alarm. My friends, let's go deeper. This is not about silence because you already know silence. This is about withdrawing your energy. And let me tell you, there is a massive difference between the two. Silence is simply not speaking. Withdrawing energy is taking back the power of your spirit, your attention, your care, the lifeblood you once poured into them. Carl Jung once said, "Where your attention goes, your energy flows." And isn't that the truth? When you gave them your attention, when you gave them your energy, you gave them power. They fed on it like it was oxygen. And now, when you pull it back, it's like cutting the cord to their air supply. They panic. Their inner alarm begins to scream because the guilt of taking you for granted finally reaches them. Think about it. You were once their constant. You checked in. You remembered the little details. You carried the weight of their moods, the ups and downs of their life, without asking for much in return. You filled the cracks they left wide open, and yet they dismissed it. They thought your energy was infinite, like a river that would never dry up. They assumed they could push you away, and you would still show up. But now the river has changed course. Now the flow no longer runs toward them. And let me tell you, folks, when a river dries, people realize real fast how much life it brought. What happens inside them when you withdraw your energy? Their conscience starts to wake up. At first, they try to fight it. They might tell themselves, "I don't need them." They might even try to replace you. But here's the truth. They feel the gap. Energy leaves an imprint. When someone has poured themselves into you, when someone has given you love and loyalty, you can't erase it like chalk off a board. It sticks to the walls of the soul. And when that energy is no longer there, guilt moves in like a ghost, whispering, "Why did you let this go? Why did you push them away?" Here's the tricky part, my friends. Withdrawing your energy will not feel easy. You are wired to give. You are wired to care. That is what made you valuable in the first place. And a part of you will want to keep giving, because you hope maybe one more drop of kindness will make them see. But you must stop yourself. You must ask, why should I water a plant that has no intention of growing? Every ounce of energy you give to someone ungrateful is energy you steal from your own healing. So yes, it will feel unnatural at first, but understand this: what feels difficult is often what heals you the most. Carl Jung spoke of individuation, the process of reclaiming yourself from the shadows of others. This is exactly what you're doing here. You are pulling your energy out of their shadows and bringing it back into your own light. And while you do that, they are left to face their own darkness, their own guilt, their own reflection. Without your energy to mask their flaws, they are forced to see themselves clearly. And believe me, folks, that is a painful sight. Picture it like a fire. For so long, you were the flame that kept their cold nights warm. They sat by it, never thanking the fire, assuming it would never burn out. But now, you've taken the fire back. The room grows cold. And suddenly, they're shivering. They replay the times you comforted them, the times you gave them joy, the times you steadied their storms. But instead of gratitude, they feel guilt. Guilt for ignoring what now feels irreplaceable. Guilt for thinking the fire would never leave. And that guilt, my friends, becomes their punishment. You might ask, what if they don't feel it? What if they really don't care? That's the fear talking. Let me tell you the truth. Human beings always feel the absence of genuine energy. They might deny it. They might bury it. They might run from it. But they feel it. And the stronger you were in their life, the more that absence burns. They may hide behind pride. They may try to distract themselves with noise. But late at night, in the quiet, guilt claws at them. That's not your burden anymore. That's theirs. And here's the beauty. When you withdraw your energy, you don't just trigger their guilt. You free yourself. You start to heal. You start to grow. You realize that your energy is precious, that it should never be wasted on someone who cannot value it. You redirect it into yourself, into your goals, your peace, your joy. And in doing so, you become stronger. And ironically, the stronger you become, the heavier their guilt grows. Because now they see, not only did they lose your energy, they lost the chance to stand beside someone who refuses to break. This is the Stoic way, calm, controlled, unshaken by the storms of others. You don't withdraw your energy out of hate. You do it out of wisdom. You do it because you finally see the truth. You cannot save someone who is intent on drowning. They must face themselves. They must face the weight of their choices. And they must face the guilt of knowing that they had something rare and they let it slip away. So here's what I want you to remember. Withdrawing your energy is not weakness. It is power. It is the quiet reclaiming of your soul. And while it may feel difficult, know this: the difficulty is proof that you are breaking free. You are no longer a prisoner of their approval. You are no longer chained to their games. You are free. My friends, let this be your affirmation today. My energy is mine. Write it down in the comments. Say it to yourself when you wake up. Whisper it when the doubt creeps in, because your energy is your greatest currency, your deepest power. And when you take it back, they will feel the loss. They will hear the alarm ringing inside their mind, and that alarm is nothing but guilt screaming their name. So stay calm, stay wise, stay powerful. Your energy is no longer theirs to drain. It belongs to you, and in that truth you will rise. Number 2, shine without them, twist the knife of comparison. My friends, let us move into the next truth. This one is sharp, and it cuts deep, not at you, but at them. It is about shining without them, not pretending, not forcing it, but truly stepping into your light, into your own growth, into your own peace. You see, when you rise after someone has rejected you, cheated on you, or walked away, it forces them to face something their pride cannot handle: comparison. They look at you, glowing, moving forward, healthier and calmer than ever before, and guilt twists inside them like a knife. The question echoes in their mind: why couldn't I support them? Why did I sabotage something so rare? Think of it like this: they expected you to fall apart without them. They imagined you broken, sitting in the dark, replaying their name like a prayer. That fantasy comforted them. It made them feel powerful. But instead, you rose. Instead of collapsing, you rebuilt. Instead of chasing them, you invested in yourself. And when they see that, it's like watching a house they abandoned turn into a palace without their hands ever touching it. That, folks, is unbearable for the ego. And where the ego is wounded, guilt rushes in to take its place. Carl Jung once wrote that what we deny in ourselves shows up in the people around us. When they see you shining, they are forced to see all the parts of themselves that are not shining. Your health, your calmness, your focus, it acts like a mirror. And that mirror doesn't just reflect your beauty, it reflects their lack. It makes them ask questions they'd rather avoid. Why didn't I treat them better? Why did I throw away someone who clearly had the strength to become this? These are not questions that fade. They stick, they linger, and they stir guilt until it rots their peace. And here's the part that might surprise you. Thriving without them doesn't require grand gestures. You don't need to post 1,000 pictures proving how happy you are. That's performance. Real thriving is quiet. It's the calm glow on your skin when you've been taking care of yourself. It's the steady look in your eyes when you've been focusing on your goals. It's the peace in your voice when you're no longer weighed down by their chaos. Those things cannot be faked. And believe me, my friends, they cannot be ignored. When they catch sight of you, whether online or in passing, their mind doesn't just notice, it obsesses. They see the changes. They feel the difference. And that is when guilt begins to gnaw. Let's be real, They had a choice. They could have supported you. They could have been the one cheering for your victories, standing beside you through your growth. But instead, they chose betrayal. They chose neglect. And now, each step you take forward becomes a reminder of their mistake. That's the knife of comparison. It twists deeper every time they see you leveling up, and the guilt screams louder. That could have been me beside them. That should have been me. Maybe they try to cover it up. Maybe they put on a show with their new replacement. But here's the thing, the replacements never compare. The glow you have when you're thriving from within, when you're at peace with yourself, can't be imitated. That glow comes from resilience, from rising after heartbreak, from reclaiming your energy. And that glow makes them feel small. They start to resent their own choices because deep down, they know. You didn't need them to rise, but they needed you to feel whole. And yes, this will feel unfair sometimes. You'll wonder, why do I have to prove myself after being hurt? But let me tell you, my friends, you're not proving yourself to them. You're proving yourself to you. You're building the kind of life that no rejection can shatter, no betrayal can ruin. And in doing so, you heal, you grow, you win. Their guilt is just the echo of that truth. So shine. Not for revenge, not for validation. Shine because your life is too precious to be dimmed by someone who couldn't see your worth. Shine because thriving is the greatest act of defiance. Shine because it proves that nothing they did could destroy the core of who you are. And as you shine, watch how their guilt grows heavier, how the knife of comparison twists deeper, how they break under the weight of realizing they gave up someone irreplaceable. Here's your affirmation for today, my friends. My growth is my revenge. Write it in the comments. Say it with power. Live it every day, because the brighter you shine, the darker their guilt becomes. And that, more than anything, will pull them back to you. Number 3. Refuse their little hooks and games. My friends, let's talk about one of the oldest tricks in the book, the hooks and games they play. You see, when someone has pushed you away, when they've betrayed or rejected you, their ego still whispers to them that you'll always be within reach. They may not want to offer real love, but they want to test if you're still caught in their net. So they send little signals. Not commitment, not honesty, just crumbs. A cryptic post designed to catch your eye, a half-like on your picture after weeks of silence, a story meant for you but never directly to you. These are not acts of love, these are ego games, and when you refuse to take the bait, when you stand firm in your control, that is when guilt begins to rot their pride. Think about it like fishing. They toss out a line, not with the intention of pulling you back for real, but simply to see if you'll bite. If you do, their ego inflates. See, they're still mine. But when you don't, when the hook sits untouched in the water, something shifts in their chest. They feel small. They feel exposed. They feel guilty because suddenly the story they told themselves, that you couldn't live without them, starts to collapse. And, folks, that collapse is painful. Carl Jung once said that people don't see others as they are. They see them through the lens of their own shadow. When they throw you bait, it isn't about you at all. It's about them trying to soothe the shadow of their insecurity. But when you don't answer, that shadow grows darker. They realize you're stronger than they ever imagined, and guilt comes rushing in, because now they must ask, if they can resist me, if they can ignore my games, maybe I really did lose them. That thought digs deep, and it doesn't let go easily. And let's be honest, my friends, refusing the bait is not easy. A part of you may want to respond, may want to prove you don't care, may even want to throw back a cryptic post of your own. That's human. But Stoicism teaches us something powerful. Not every impulse deserves action. Control is strength. Responding feeds their ego. Refusing feeds your soul. And the beauty is, when you choose not to play, you flip the script entirely. The one who once thought they held all the power begins to drown in guilt and doubt. Picture this: they like your picture, expecting you to rush to their profile, expecting you to decode the hidden meaning. But you don't. Days pass. Nothing. Their stomach knots. Why aren't they chasing? Why aren't they reacting? That knot is guilt mixed with panic. The bait is supposed to remind you of what you lost, but instead it reminds them of what they lost. Every unanswered breadcrumb becomes a mirror that says they don't need you anymore. And that realization haunts them. Here's where pride and guilt clash. At first, they'll tell themselves stories. They must not have seen it. They're just playing hard to get. But over time, when the silence holds, guilt starts eating away at those excuses. Their pride says, "I didn't mess up." But guilt whispers, "Yes, you did." They're not responding because you pushed them too far. That inner war keeps them restless at night. The best part? By refusing to play, you preserve your dignity. You show them without a single word that you will not settle for crumbs. You make it clear that your energy is too valuable to waste on games. And folks, when you live in that truth, their conscience does the work for you. They replay the times you gave and gave, only to be tossed aside. They realize you were sincere while they were manipulative, and that realization weighs heavy. That's when guilt moves from a whisper to a roar. So the next time you see a cryptic post, a sudden half-like or a fake attempt at attention, remember this: it is not love, it is bait. And the strongest thing you can do is smile inwardly, let it pass, and refuse to bite. Because your refusal says more than any response ever could. It says, "I am not your game anymore." And that, my friends, is what breaks them. That is what makes their guilt unbearable. Your affirmation for today is this: I refuse the bait. Write it in the comments. Repeat it when you feel the urge to respond. Let it anchor you in moments of temptation, because each time you refuse, you grow stronger, and their guilt grows heavier. And sooner or later, that guilt will drive them back to you, not out of love they've suddenly discovered, but out of regret they can no longer silence. Number 4, let their memories haunt them in peace. My friends, let us talk about the one battlefield no one can escape, the battlefield of memory. You see, people can run from conversations, they can block numbers, they can distract themselves with noise and faces and endless scrolling. But there is one thing they cannot run from: the memories you left behind. And those memories, my friends, do not just sit quietly in the corner. No, they grow teeth. They bite, they haunt, they turn from warm nostalgia into sharp punishment. Every song, every photo, every inside joke becomes a dagger that stabs at their conscience. And when guilt latches onto memory, it creates a prison with no walls. At first, they will try to enjoy those memories. They'll replay a joke you shared, or think about a moment where you laughed together. For a second, it feels warm, almost comforting, but the warmth doesn't last. Because right after the smile comes the sting of realization. They gave me all of that, and I destroyed it. They were there for me, and I let them go. That sting turns joy into shame, and suddenly the memory they thought would comfort them becomes their punishment. Think of it like an echo chamber. Every time they hear a song that once belonged to the two of you, the lyrics hit differently now. What once sounded like romance now sounds like loss. What once was a reminder of love is now a reminder of guilt. They can't turn off the radio because the radio lives inside their head. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." This is exactly what happens here. Their unconscious guilt rises through memory, forcing them to face what they've buried. Even the smallest triggers can undo them. A cafe you once sat in, a street you once walked together, even a phrase someone else uses that sounds like you. It all becomes a haunting. And what is haunting if not the soul's way of saying, "You did wrong and you know it"? Nostalgia for them no longer carries comfort. It carries guilt in every frame. And here's what's important. You don't have to force this. You don't have to remind them. You don't have to send old pictures or messages. Their mind does it all for you. Because when someone truly gave you love, when someone truly poured energy into you, the soul cannot forget. Even if the mouth denies, even if pride tries to bury it, the heart remembers. And when that remembrance collides with guilt, it is unbearable. They may even try to rewrite the story in their head. It wasn't that serious. They weren't that special. But memory doesn't lie. Memory keeps showing them your patience when they were cold. Memory keeps showing them your loyalty when they tested you. Memory keeps showing them how you stayed when you had every reason to walk. And that relentless replay becomes a mirror they cannot escape. Instead of seeing the past as a safe place, they see it as proof of their failure. And that, folks, is torture in disguise. Now let me ask you this. Doesn't it feel almost poetic that the same moments they took for granted are the ones that now judge them? That the same love they ignored is the very love that now haunts them? My friends, this is not revenge. This is not cruelty. This is psychology. This is the conscience doing what it was built to do. Remind us when we have failed. And you don't have to do a thing. You don't have to break your dignity by throwing their mistakes in their face. You don't have to lower yourself by begging them to remember. No, you simply let the memories work on their own. Because guilt plus memory is a fire that never burns out. It smolders, it lingers, it creeps back in at the quietest times. And eventually it becomes so heavy that they cannot carry it alone. That's when the phone in their hand feels like a lifeline. That's when they break the silence. So hear me clearly. Let them sit with their memories. Let them haunt themselves in peace. Because every laugh they recall, every touch they replay, every look they reimagine, it no longer warms them. It condemns them. And in that condemnation, guilt grows until it forces them to crawl back to you, not out of strength, but out of the weight of their regret. Your affirmation for this chapter, my friends, is simple. My memories are power. Write it in the comments. Say it to yourself when doubt creeps in. Because those very moments you once thought were wasted are now the chains pulling them back. Stay calm. Stay grounded. Stay in your power. Because the ghosts of memory are now your silent allies, and they will do the work for you. Number 5. Carry yourself with dignity. Make them the villain. My friends, here is where your true power shows. Not in shouting, not in revenge, not in proving your point, but in the calm dignity you carry. You see, most people, when they are hurt, lash out. They rage, they gossip, they throw words like daggers, trying to tear down the person who betrayed them. That's the common path. That's the weak path. But when you choose another way, when you choose dignity, you expose them without ever lifting a finger. Your silence is no longer just absence. It becomes a mirror. And in that mirror, they see the truth. They handled this with honor. I handled it with cowardice. That contrast, my friends, eats away at their pride until guilt takes over. Think of it like standing in a courtroom. You are calm, collected, graceful, presenting no need to defend yourself. Meanwhile, they are the one fidgeting, making excuses, squirming under the weight of their own actions. That's what dignity does. It places you in the role of strength and them in the role of weakness. And while they may try to convince others, or even themselves, that they were right, your composure makes their story crumble. Because the truth is simple. No one looks like a hero when they are throwing stones at someone who carries themselves like royalty. Carl Jung spoke often about the shadow, the parts of ourselves we deny and project onto others. When you choose dignity, you force them to face their shadow. They wanted to believe you would lash out so they could point and say, "See? They're crazy, they're unstable, I was right to leave." But when you refuse to give them that satisfaction, when you remain steady, they are forced to confront the reality that the instability was never you. It was them. And that realization burns. Your calmness becomes a contrast. Imagine two paintings side by side. One, messy, chaotic, colors splattered without thought. The other, balanced, serene, composed with care. People don't need to be told which is art and which is chaos. They see it instantly. That's exactly how your dignity works. Their betrayal, their cowardice, their lies, their cruelty, it all looks uglier when held up against your grace. And the uglier their actions look, the louder guilt whispers in their ear. You ruined something pure. You damaged something rare. And let me tell you, folks, that guilt doesn't fade, because the mind always compares. They will meet new people, and when those people badmouth their exes, they will remember you didn't. They will see others who explode in anger, and they will remember how you stayed composed. They will watch others collapse in desperation, and they will remember how you stood tall. And every comparison becomes a weight pressing down on their chest, reminding them of the stark difference between your strength and their weakness. Now, I know what you might be thinking, but it feels unfair. Why should I stay calm when they hurt me so badly? My friends, Stoicism teaches us this. We do not control what others do, we only control our response. Your dignity is not for them, it is for you. It is your shield, it is your weapon. It keeps your spirit intact, and as a byproduct, it destroys them slowly, because guilt thrives in contrast. When they see the nobility in your response, they cannot escape the ugliness of theirs. And here's the poetic part. The more they try to defend themselves, the worse they look. If they badmouth you, others will see it doesn't match your character. If they try to justify what they did, their words fall flat against the weight of your calmness. Their guilt grows not only from within, but from how the world perceives the difference. People start to see the truth without you ever needing to say a word. So carry yourself with dignity, not because they deserve it, but because you do. Let your calmness be your crown. Let your composure be your proof. Because while they drown in the guilt of cowardice, you rise as the one who held your honor. And my friends, that rise is something they will never forget. Here's your affirmation for this section. Dignity is my power. Write it in the comments. Let it remind you every single day that you don't need to fight dirty. You don't need to lower yourself. You don't need to prove anything. Your calm dignity makes them the villain in their own story, and guilt will make sure they never escape that truth. Number 6. Time, the slow poison of regret. My friends, let us talk about the one force that no man, no woman, no relationship has ever been able to defeat: time. Time is the slowest teacher, but it is also the most brutal judge. You see, in the beginning, when someone walks away from you or rejects you, they can convince themselves with excuses. They say, "It wasn't that serious. I'll find better. I'll be fine." And maybe in that first week those lies feel comforting. Maybe pride covers the wound. But time, my friends, has a way of stripping away illusions. The longer you stay steady, the more those excuses begin to crumble. The lies they told themselves get weaker, and the truth gets louder. That truth is guilt, and guilt doesn't vanish. It multiplies with time. Carl Jung once wrote that who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes, and time, slowly but surely, forces people inward. In the quiet weeks, in the empty months, they are left to look inside themselves. And what do they see there? They see the choice they made. They see the loyalty they discarded. They see the betrayal they carried out. At first, they'll try to run from it. They'll bury it under distractions, under new faces, under fake smiles. But those things fade, and when they fade, guilt remains. And guilt, when left alone with time, only grows heavier. Think of it like rust on iron. At first, it's just a small spot, barely noticeable, but as the days pass, it spreads. It eats away slowly, silently, until the whole surface is corroded. That is what guilt does. In the first days, they can hide from it. In the first weeks, they can mask it. But give it months, give it seasons, and the rust of regret covers everything. They can't touch a memory of you without feeling the corrosion of guilt on their hands. And here is the secret: your steadiness makes it worse. If you lashed out, if you begged, if you collapsed, their ego could use that as fuel. They could say, "See, I was right to leave." They're unstable. But when you remain calm, when you carry yourself with dignity, time becomes your ally. Because every week that passes without you breaking only strengthens the contrast. They see that you did not collapse. They see that you did not crumble. And in that steadiness, their excuses weaken. Their pride whispers, "You'll be fine without them." But time answers back, "Then why are you still thinking about them?" And my friends, time is relentless. At first, guilt is a whisper. Weeks later, it is a murmur. Months later, it is a roar. Until finally, it drowns them. It doesn't matter how far they run, time follows. It doesn't matter who they're with, time compares. And every day that they don't reach out, the weight grows heavier. Because the truth is this: the longer they wait, the more they realize how much they've lost. And the realization that they cannot get back those moments, that they can't undo the past, is a punishment far worse than anything you could give them. So let time work for you. Do not rush. Do not break your calm. Do not wonder why they haven't reached out yet. Understand this: time is pressing down on them, even if you can't see it. Their pride might delay them, but pride cannot hold out forever against the poison of regret. Eventually, time wears it down, piece by piece, until guilt is all that remains. And when the guilt becomes unbearable, when the rust of regret eats too deep, they will break. They will reach for their phone, not because they want to, but because they must. Stay steady, my friends. Trust in the slow burn of time, because time magnifies truth, and the truth is that you were the one who stood with honor while they chose cowardice. With every week that passes, the contrast grows sharper. With every month that goes by, guilt grows heavier, until one day it no longer whispers, it screams. Your affirmation for today: time works for me. Write it in the comments. Let it remind you that you do not need to rush. You do not need to chase. Time itself is your ally, and guilt is their punishment. Stand steady and let time deliver the justice you no longer need to seek. Number 7. Make them wonder if you've already moved on. My friends, let us speak of the sharpest blade guilt can wield, the thought that you may have already moved on. Nothing unsettles a person more than imagining their replacement not as someone they chose, but as someone who's now stepped into the space they once occupied. It is one thing for them to know you are strong alone, but it is another thing entirely for them to wonder if someone else is now receiving the very love, the very loyalty, the very devotion they threw away. That thought twists their insides like a knife, and guilt presses down heavier than ever before. You see, they told themselves a story when they left. That story was simple. They'll always wait for me. I can come back whenever I want. They won't move on. It comforts their pride to believe you are frozen in time, stuck on them, unable to love again. But when they begin to see signs that you might not be standing still, that your life is moving forward without them, the entire story collapses. And when their story collapses, guilt rushes in like a flood. Carl Jung spoke about projection, the way we cast our own fears outward when we cannot face them within. This is exactly what happens here. They begin projecting their guilt into fear. What if someone else now makes them laugh the way I once did? What if someone else is holding the hand that should have been mine? What if I was the villain who gave away something priceless? Each question stabs, and each stab is guilt reminding them of their mistake. And here is the beauty of it. You do not even have to be with someone new for this guilt to activate. All it takes is the possibility. Maybe you look happier. Maybe you look healthier. Maybe you glow in a way that suggests someone is treating you with the care you deserve. It could be your peace. It could be your joy. It could be nothing at all but their own imagination running wild. But imagination is a powerful tormentor, my friends, and guilt makes it worse. The more they think about it, the more they punish themselves with images of you in someone else's arms. Think of it like a shadow following them wherever they go. They scroll through their phone and wonder, who are they talking to? Who's making them smile like that? They see your growth and wonder, did someone else inspire that? And, with every thought, their guilt grows louder, because deep down they know they could have been that person, but they chose to sabotage it. And now they are forced to watch the possibility that someone else is reaping the rewards of what they destroyed. This is why guilt is so powerful. It doesn't just remind them of the past, it terrifies them about the future. They already regret losing you, but the idea that another person now holds what they once held, that is unbearable. That is when the pride cracks. That is when the phone feels heavy in their hand. That is when the text comes, not from love newly discovered, but from guilt they can no longer carry. And I know what you might be asking, but what if I really haven't moved on? My friends, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you are living, you are thriving, and you are no longer orbiting around them. That alone creates the suspicion that someone else may be drawn to your light. And that suspicion is enough to twist the knife. So let them wonder, let them sit with their imagination, let their own guilt write the story in their mind, because whether it's true or not, the thought of losing not just what they had, but what they could have had in the future will haunt them. And that haunting, my friends, is what breaks them down. Your affirmation for this section is simple: I am irreplaceable. Write it in the comments, say it when doubt whispers to you. Let it remind you that no matter what they try to convince themselves of, they know the truth. You cannot be replaced. And the thought that someone else might now receive the love they threw away will be the guilt that finally brings them back to your door. Number 8. The text will come, but now it's on your terms. My friends, let us bring this journey full circle. You've walked through the storms of rejection, betrayal, neglect. You've pulled your energy back. You've carried yourself with dignity. You've allowed time and guilt to do the work. And now, after all the excuses, after all the distractions, after all the stories they told themselves, the moment comes. The text appears. That little message, the one you waited for, the one you once begged for, finally shows up on your screen. But here's the truth you must understand. It wasn't kindness that pushed them to text. It wasn't a sudden burst of maturity. It wasn't even love in its purest form. No, my friends, it was guilt. Their own conscience dragged them back to you, whether they wanted it or not. You see, guilt is a relentless master. It does not sleep, it does not fade, it does not forgive. Every choice they made, every betrayal, every moment they dismissed you while you gave your best, it all stacked up like bricks on their back. At first, they thought they could carry it. They thought, I'll just move on, I'll find someone else, I'll forget. But guilt has a way of poisoning even their sweetest moments. A new laugh reminds them of your oars. A fleeting comfort reminds them of what they destroyed. And the more they try to suppress it, the heavier it becomes, until one day they crack. And when they do, the only relief they can imagine is reaching out to you. That text, my friends, is not just words. It is a confession, even if it doesn't sound like one. Whether it says, "Hey, how have you been?" or "I miss you," or even something shallow like, "I saw something that reminded me of you," the meaning is the same. I cannot carry this guilt anymore. I cannot outrun what I did. I need to know if the door is still open. That is not you chasing them. It is guilt chasing them right back to you. And here is where your power must be clear. You see, once upon a time you would have clung to that text like a lifeline. You would have answered in seconds, heart racing, desperate to feel chosen again. But now you understand. The text does not mean they hold the power. The text means you do. Because it came on your terms, because you didn't beg for it, because you didn't demand it. You stood in your strength, and their guilt did the chasing for you. That, my friends, is Stoic power at its finest. Carl Jung said that what you resist not only persists, but grows in size. By resisting the urge to chase, you allowed their guilt to grow until it became unbearable. By resisting the temptation to beg, you forced them to sit with their conscience. And now, as they circle back, you must remember this. The text is not proof of their strength. It is proof of their weakness. It is proof that even in leaving you, they could not leave behind what you gave them. And yet, here is the paradox. Even though guilt brought them back, do not mistake it. Love was always there. They loved you, even if pride blinded them. They cared, even if cowardice kept them from admitting it. They felt your worth, even if insecurity made them sabotage it. The guilt that broke them down was built on the foundation of love they could never erase. That is why they come back. That is why the circle closes. Not because you demanded it, but because deep down they always knew you were the one. So when the message comes, breathe deeply. Do not rush. Do not panic. Do not lose your power. Remember, it is on your terms now. You decide what happens next. You decide whether their guilt earns another chance, or whether you walk away even stronger. Either way, you are in control, and that is the sweetest victory, not chasing, not begging, not proving, but allowing their own guilt, their own conscience, their own regret to carry them right back to your door. And so, my friends, here we are at the end of this journey. You've seen how guilt works like a shadow, how it grows heavier with time, how it twists their pride until it finally forces them back to you. Remember this truth. You did not chase, you did not beg, you stood firm, and that is why the story turned in your favor. Now it's on your terms. If this spoke to your soul, press that like button, share this with someone who needs it, and subscribe for more Stoic wisdom. And write it in the comments. I am in control.